So today we are talking about time and the obsession with seeing movement in the 3D, because for many of you, this obsession with needing to see movement in a certain amount of time is the very thing that's actually creating even more time in your reality. So we're going to address this today, and I hope it's going to get you finally on the right track. Before we jump in, my name is Genevieve. I'm a manifestation coach, and in the description below you will see all the links for all the ways that you can work with me. You can do a one-on-one call with me. You can do a course. I always like to say that I recommend doing the courses because they give you really structured, in-depth instruction and content and exercises to do over time. It'll give you a sustainable shift, because a lot of you guys, sometimes sabotage yourselves and you don't follow through with what you know you should be doing. And often having a structured course that's me sending you an email every day with exactly what to do that day helps you. So those are all available down below. So look at all that. Yeah, let's get into this. So I get it. There is a lot of manifestation content on the internet now. And I actually think that that's great, because often for a lot of us, we just need to hear that one person say the same thing we've heard a million times, but hearing it from that person on that day in that moment really helps it click deeper than it ever did before. And for whatever reason, we just needed to hear it from that person on that day. So having lots of voices saying similar things, but in slightly different ways, can often make things click for you. So that's good. Although the shadow side of that is that there's a lot of people saying stuff that kind of doesn't make sense and is actually not helpful. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's not what this video is about. But what I really want to talk about is how in a lot of the manifestation content out there, and also in the forums, you hear other people's success stories. And that's really, it can be very inspirational. And part of us might be a little bit addicted to hearing about other people's success stories, because it kind of gives us that like dopamine hit of like, oh, I could have that too. And it's almost like a little bit addictive to like search for other people's success stories and to be searching for people like, where's that person who has exactly the same circumstances as I do? And I can kind of compare myself to them. And if they were successful, then that means I can be successful. But any kind of comparison, even with a success story, even with a story that sounds similar to yours, can be very, very dangerous, because it's another version of giving our power away to something outside of ourselves, for us to be, not looking within at what is so powerful within, that we can just decide whatever's true at any moment. We can just step into that and decide what's true, regardless of circumstances. Instead of doing that, we're kind of looking to someone out here to align with, like, oh, that person had a success story and, they had similar circumstances and it only took them 3 weeks. So I guess that means that's what it's supposed to be for me. That's like you're leaving yourself, and it's just another version of going out in the 3D and taking weird, like that success story now is another circumstance that like weirdly has power over you, because you're now like comparing yourself to them in this weird like performance oriented way, and it's not helping you. And I'm starting this video by talking about that, because that is the thing that gets most of you when it comes to this time obsession and this like needing to see 3D movement in a certain amount of time. Because a lot of you feel like, oh, if I don't see movement within 3 weeks, that means I'm failing. But guess what? That is just an assumption that you made up based on the arbitrary condition of time that you just made up because you saw someone else said something kind of similar to that, then you made it a rule within you. And it's dangerous, because then you are actually setting yourself up to not see movement after 3 weeks or whatever arbitrary amount of time that you've decided is the rule. If you don't see movement, then you're going to think you failed. But because you made the rule, you probably will fail because you made that rule. I hope that's making sense and landing. So it's fine to get inspiration from other people's success stories. It's even fine to want the camaraderie of maybe seeing a success story of someone else who had maybe similar circumstances to you. But a lot of you are taking it way, way too far, where it's not just like casual inspiration, casual camaraderie. It's becoming like the thing that you go to feed on, and then you internalize whatever you're assuming about them based off of just the bare details of their story. Because that's the other thing. You have no idea what that person really did have to go through to get their success. Because often behind every success story that looks like maybe it had a quick turnaround, there was a lot of personal development stuff, a lot of failures that person probably had to go through, I should say, before they were able to, finally have things click. And then they did their practice for 3 weeks or whatever arbitrary thing. And then it came after 3 weeks. Like, there's usually a lot more going into it that's so personal to that person that you don't get to see in the, just casual worded online success story. And so it's very dangerous for you to look at that person and be like, oh, well, they had my circumstances and they just affirmed, this thing for 2 days and then boom, it happened. And then assuming that like, that's all it is. Cause then what you're doing is you're internalizing that, okay, I'm going to do that. You get excited at first. You're like, yep, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the exact same thing they did because the power is in whatever technique they did. The power is not in me. It's in the technique they did. So I'm going to do that technique. And then you're excited at first. And then 2 days goes by or whatever, 3 weeks, whatever arbitrary amount of time that you've decided is the only time that success happens. That goes by, and then you're like, oh my God, it still isn't here. I've been doing this for 2 days, 3 weeks, 3 years, 17 hours, whatever it is, time, whatever. I've been doing this for this amount of time, and whoa, I haven't seen any movement. Oh my God, I'm failing at this. I'm not doing it right. Or maybe it's like, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe I'm not working. Maybe I can't have what I want. You start to spiral into like all kinds of stuff. And all of it is because you made this rule about movement in a certain amount of time. And that needs to stop. So this is why you'll especially notice in the kinds of videos that I put out, I put so much emphasis on that there is nothing to get from the 3D. Of course, it's nice to see movement when it comes in, because that's of course what we're doing here. We're changing reality, and there will be movement in reality the more you in your inner world harden into the true belief of what you want to manifest. You have to harden in a healthy, sustainable way in the true belief of that before you're going to see movement. And who knows how long that's going to take. And the more that you're obsessed with how long it's going to take, you're going to create a lot of time. Like, for example, if you're worried, like, oh my God, what if it takes me 6 months to really believe in my affirmations? Oh my God, that's a long time. I cannot do this for 6 months. Like, if you're having those kinds of weird assumptive fears about yourself, there's a lot going on that's not quite right within you. Because first of all, this practice is meant to be very enjoyable. If you're thinking that doing this practice for 6 months sounds like hell or something, and it's gonna like really suck to do this practice for 6 months, then you are absolutely still in the mindset of that there's nothing of value in here, that this sucks, there's fulfillment doesn't come from you. It absolutely comes from the 3D. You're still obsessing about the 3D, about I want that thing, I want that person, I want this 3D thing, and I can't wait for 6 months. Like, you're interpreting doing 6 months of like a spiritual manifestation practice, you're interpreting that as, oh, that's just waiting and suffering for 6 months before I get what I want. Like, so that's like already like really not the right mindset to have. But also, again, if you're afraid of time, you can guarantee you're going to create it, because whatever you're afraid of, you create, because you're only afraid of things that you think are real. Like, you're only afraid of things that you think are genuine threats to you. You're not afraid of things that you're neutral to. Like, if you're neutral to time, you're not thinking about that. You're just in the moment. You're just like, oh yeah, I have everything right now. Fulfillment is right now. There is no time. All I need to do is right now step into the remembering of who I am, that I already have everything I want and I comfortably have it right now. And there's nothing in the future to worry about or to wait for. Like, that's all a fallacy. And the only reason that you're seeing, lack of movement within time is because that's where you're placing all of your focus and all of your power, because you're so freaked out about time and you're so freaked out about the 3D. So again, this is why I say to really work with yourself around remembering this is not about the 3D. The 3D isn't giving you the experience. You're a master conscious manifestor. You give yourself the experience that you want to have. You saturate in it. You deepen in it. You trust it. You really enjoy and learn to have a good relationship, a good self-concept, a good just, back and forth with yourself about yourself. And you so trust yourself. You're so grounded in each moment in yourself that you can just pick what you want to experience in that moment. And the more dominantly you over and over again pick, oh yeah, this is who I am. Oh yeah, this is who I am. Oh yeah, this is who I am. And you just keep picking that no matter what the frick is going on out here. You're not looking at time and being like, oh, but it's been 3 weeks and I can't keep picking this because obviously it's not working. So I guess I can't pick it anymore because it's been 3 weeks and I haven't seen movement. Like, that's how a lot of your guys' self-sabotage is working, is like you're, again, noticing time, starting to like go back to like, oh, time has power. This means it's not working. But the only reason, again, that you're not seeing movement super quickly or whatever is because you give time a lot of power. So really work with yourself on taking your power back, because again, I know it's a paradox and it annoys people, but when you embrace it and just remember, oh yeah, the power is all within me. Time is a condition. It's just a 3D construct because this physical world needs something linear to like operate on, but really time only exists in the 3D. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And I am a 5D being that's creating here. And every time that I make time powerful, that I decide as the creator that time is a condition that has power over me, every time I do that, I'm creating more of it. And I cannot do that. I cannot be comparing myself to other people that I honestly don't even know anything about, because they're the operant power of their life. I don't know what they went through to like really get that shift within themselves that got them that. And time wasn't even, that's an arbitrary part of their story, that it took them, that random person took them 3 weeks before they got it, or that random person took them 8 years before they got it. It's all just arbitrary, not important. But the more you put a lot of like fearful, like emphasis on it, like, oh my God, that's how much time it took. Because a lot of you, that's always your first question when it comes to, you know, hearing a success story. That's like, for most of you, that's the first thing you want to hear is like, well, how long did it take? And what did they do? Those are always the first two questions, like how long and what did they do? As if the power was in that, was in what they did. And I will say, I mean, part of the power, it's not real, that's not the right word. It's not that there was any power in what they did. It was that the power was in themselves, and they picked a practice that worked for them, and it grounded them in what was, you know, their new chosen reality. And that's what made it work. It wasn't the technique itself. It was that they got themselves into the right state to use that technique properly. Because that's also what a lot of you are doing. This could be a whole nother video, but a lot of you know that I talk about, it's not really the technique itself you're doing. It's the you behind the technique. Like, are you still like powerless as you do that technique? Are you still like anxiously grasping for something as you affirm or as you meditate? Are you still telling yourself that you're not doing enough, and that's the like the dominant you behind the technique? Because if that's the energy of you that's being pushed out through the technique, then that technique is just kind of being hijacked by your old state or your old self, whatever you want to call it. So just something else to keep in mind. And that's why I say that you don't really know the full depth of what went into that other person's success story in terms of like what all they went through to get to the point that they could actually use techniques correctly and healthfully. Because honestly, because I have a lot of clients, like I know that a lot of them went through a lot of failure, which is not really failing. Like even failing is not failing, because all it is just learning, of like learning. It's like being a little kid and learning how to ride a bike. Like you've got to learn how to use the tools correctly. That's how it is in manifestation. Like you've got to learn how to use them correctly. And sometimes you fall a little bit or you trip up, and you know, because you didn't know that you were gonna assume that, or that you were still assuming that, or that you were doing this and it was leaking, like you. And so it just takes sometimes a process. I don't even want to say it takes time. It just takes your own process. And the more that you're really open, you're not threatened by your own process, you're so self-loving, you're so self-gentle, that you're not obsessed with, but I gotta be perfect right now because I need to make it happen right now. Like all of that is still pedestalizing the 3D, making it all about, you know, that thing out there, I need that right now. And this in here, this sucks, that I don't really want this. I don't want my own fulfillment. I want that. I want the shiny toy out there. But you know, another thing, you know, because I mentioned this before too, that thing out there that you want, the manifestation, it is not what fixes you. And you've gotten what you wanted in the past, usually briefly, and it still didn't sustain you. This is why you need to sustainably find that inner love, that inner peace, that inner confidence, whatever you want to call it, that is already grounded in the identity of the person who has it. That's when the manifestation can come in and actually stay and not just be like this hot and cold flash because you're obsessed with like trying to manipulate and get something. So anyway, this I think has been enough for today. So I will wrap this up here. Please let me know any of your thoughts or questions about this in the comments below. Yeah, and any requests you have for future videos. So let me know, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. All right, bye.